Yeah, 5 years.
Yeah.
It was a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, we are 5 after 2, so it looks like we have quite a few people here today. So I just wanted to say welcome. My name is Jennifer Harden. I am actually the campus director out in Utah for that campus, and I met Shay when she came in. Well, I think I met you at a meetup event. Potentially, I can't remember how we met. If I found you online or if we met at a meetup event, but either way,
We met.
yeah, we met, and she came in with another tech recruiter a few months ago and came into the campus and spoke. But now that we are kind of in lockdown and unable to meet in person, I thought she would have some really valuable insight with her experience in COVID so far and whatnot. So thank you so much for taking the time to come out and talk with us. And for those that have questions, just make sure that you are on mute until we get to a point in the conversation where you're welcome to unmute and ask your question, or you can write your question over in the chat as well as we go along. So this is going to be a very like open to question sort of talk. So
Yes.
yeah, so thanks so much, Shay, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Of course. I'm happy to be here. I've definitely been doing this for a while, going on my 6th year now. It's crazy, time flies. But I just want to make sure that I'm helping where you guys feel like help is needed. So I have a lot of areas that I could focus on. I want it to be mostly like a casual conversation and more of a Q&A, but there are some basic things that I will definitely touch on to start off, which biggest, especially right now, is how do you represent yourself on paper, so your resume, as well as your online presence. So what does your LinkedIn profile look like? Do you have a website? Because a lot of developers have decided to make their own personal websites. If not, how do you show samples of your code? Because having samples actually bolsters any application that you want to do, or even an interview. To have code samples on hand goes a long way. So for me, I want to just touch on those couple things briefly and then just open up for questions so that I'm answering the things that you guys really want to know or you feel like you need help on. So for resumes, I think a big misconception that I always correct, and I correct it over and over and over, is the idea that you need to have a one-page resume. One-page resumes are a thing of the past. In fact, if you're doing one-page resume, I guarantee you there's not enough detail on there to do yourself justice to actually stand out amongst the hundreds of applications. This is right now you're in a more competitive market because of all of the layoffs. That you need to have more detail available for people to view on your resume. So I have coined a term master resume. Honestly, it would be smart for you to take the time to literally dump every single technical term that you've touched, detail it out, put it on paper, and organize it just so you have it. Because a lot of recruiters will say, well, I need all of these buzzwords, or what have you done? If you have a master resume, even if it's like 7 pages long, that details that out, you can send them. I have a huge document that has all the detail you want, and send that their way, and it's already completed. Or you can have that same conversation 60 different times with different people and clarify and explain, this is how I've used this is how I've used this, I have this many years in this, but also tailoring your resume up for any application you do is a must. If you're not taking 10 to 15 minutes to make sure your resume has the keywords that are in the job description, where it's applicable, as much as you possibly can put it in there, what's happening is, because of modern times, a lot of corporate companies use a database that collects their resumes. So when you apply, it goes into a database and it flags the top choices based on keywords that are present on the required skills that an HR person, a recruiter, a manager, whoever it may be, types in, like, I need these key skills for this person to be hired. So that database, it's flagging the ones that have that keyword in the resume the most and saying, these are your top candidates for, you know, these requirements that you've put into this database. So I understand it's obnoxious. I 100% understand it's obnoxious and it's frustrating because there's several different ways you can represent a term on a resume that if they don't have that exact term, it may not pull. So like I said, to look at the job description you're applying to, see how they've phrased the pieces of technology they're asking for, and then taking that legit way they phrased it and putting it in your resume where it's applicable. It'll take you 10 to 15 minutes to make sure that that's done, but you're going to see more success with the applications you actually put in because you're not going to be buried. You're going to be in the top 5 versus, you know, in the top 30. They're going to go through the top 5 first before they even look at the rest. They want to see who's best fit, how, and technology has sped that up for us because we have those databases that pull based on keywords. We as HR teams get flooded with resumes, especially in times like these, where right now it's ultra important that you slow down and you take the time to make sure your background is reflected as picture perfect as possible on your resume before you click send. So you're going to have like 50 different versions of your resume. You have to be okay with that. You have to accept it and you just have to do it. It will pay off. You'll be looking way less time frame wise than somebody that is not willing to do those things. But like I said, I totally understand that it's obnoxious. So that's my little blurb on the basics of resumes. Does anybody have questions on how to represent yourself on paper? We're good?
So when it comes to, you know, like as far as who this talk is intended for is kind of more geared towards, well, just because of the audience of like junior developers type individuals. So what would you say is the, as far as on paper, the best way to sell yourself or put your best foot forward with regard to someone who has very little or no experience?
So you're going to want to highlight your projects that you've been a part of while you've been learning. So the things that you've worked on that showcases your code. You need to be as detailed with those projects as absolutely possible. So any tool you used, any language you touched, explain why you used it, how it was selected, your part in the project, what the project existed for, like detail it out as much as you possibly can think to detail it. And then you're putting your projects on the top of your resume. Under your education, you'll list your education, and then you'll have projects. And then you'll have your projects listed out. And then after that, then I would say your top languages that you're most comfortable with after your projects to detail out, you know, you're strongest in this language and it's your favorite and why. And then after you do your language section, then go to your work experience, especially if your work experience is not applicable to technology. And you technically only need your last position. If you're switching industry and this is going to be your first tech-related position, do not have the typical like 10 years or 5 years of customer service, whatever. If it's the same position, cool. But then what you do is you have to show that you've been working, right? And then underneath that, just put more experience available upon request. But then biggest thing too is instead of a cover letter before your education, because you'll start with the layout, you'll have your name right, contact information, summary. I say summaries are the new cover letters today because I'll be honest with you guys, a lot of HR teams do not look at cover letters. So I would say don't waste your time with writing up cover letters per application. Make sure your summary showcases what you're trying to accomplish, what you're passionate about in technology, if you're switching industry, why you decided to switch industry, and let them know I'm switching industries in that summary, right? And the reason why you decided to. And then your education projects, languages you're strongest in and why. Like, make sure you have personality on your resume, because that's what separates you from your standard professional resume. Obviously, still keep it professional, but the uniqueness of something different and something fresh versus the standard one page that we get constantly is another thing that's going to separate you from other people that are applying right now. So don't be afraid to make jokes or to touch on hobbies, but you want your hobbies obviously to be minimal compared to your professional, what you can do with code type of data that you're going to have on the resume. But don't be afraid to be yourself and to let that show through. I think that's the biggest thing that I touch on. And then have a link. If you have projects that are online anywhere, have the links with your projects that can be clicked on so that people can go take a look and see exactly what that project is, and the code and everything else. So make sure you're linking everything to what's online. You did it. It's there. It's your portfolio, right? So make sure that they have the information available to access it, to see the hard work that you've put in. That's going to make a major difference with people that are coming out of getting degrees, code camps, or just self-taught programmers. It's going to be, showcase that work, showcase your portfolio, make sure they can see it. And if you're doing private repositories on GitHub, there's actually a way that you can turn on people's access to see that you're actually committing without having access to the actual commits. So they can't see any of it, but they see that you're active. And that also makes a big difference. The people that are on GitHub every single day, committing as much as possible, a lot of my hiring managers have viewed that as passion for what they're doing, and it bolsters a resume or someone's background. We had someone that was self-taught, had been doing it for 5 years, and he had the most commits we'd ever seen anybody have. And the code that he presented blew the mind of one of our hiring managers. He hired him in as a senior developer, and he was self-taught and had been struggling to land an actual official full-time development job. He's just doing freelance work where he could find it, which was here and there, and working another job and committing and staying focused on, developing still. But it's all about, making sure that the work you're doing, you can show it, not only talk about it, but show it. I think that's the biggest flip of mindset that needs to be made with a resume is if you have things online, link it there. Have links, describe it in detail. Don't be too vague. Like, you want the work that you're doing to be defined and clear, and have, samples for hiring managers to see. Because I've had several code camp grads be coding at a higher capacity than my degreed folks coming straight out of, the U or BYU. It's all about the time you put into it. And I think Jen can attest to that as well, is you will be taught things, but then it's up to you to take it and run with it and expand on those things. That's a personal choice about how much time you focus and where you decide to learn and how much passion you have behind it. And that's going to reflect in the projects you decide to take on personally. And your personal projects right now, as you start out, are what is going to separate you from other people that are trying to get their first development job. Hopefully that was helpful. Any questions on that at all? Yes, no? Okay, awesome. At any point, if you have a question, don't be afraid to ask it. You're more than welcome to cut me off. It doesn't offend me. So if you have a question, just let me know. But we'll move on to online presence or your LinkedIn profiles, which are massively important. If you don't have a LinkedIn, make one today, and make sure it matches your resume. Do not have conflicting information on your LinkedIn versus your resume. Recruiters look at that. They definitely check it out. And your recruiters are your first step. Recruiters could be HR team member, because in some companies, they don't have the recruiter title, but you have to get past the HR team first and foremost, generally. One rock star approach I had to online presence and reach out, I actually had someone, I wish I could remember his name. It's definitely saved in my list because I will be reaching out to him. So what he did, he was about to graduate, and he was reaching out to network and to see if he could talk to people within companies that he was interested in. He added me on LinkedIn and sent a message right away and said, I am just graduating or about to graduate. I know you don't really know me yet, but I would really love the opportunity to showcase what I've been working on. I've created a presentation that outlines this project. I would love to show you what it does, how I was involved, and just explain to you all of the things that I've learned and why I love developing. Do you have the time for me to do that with you soon? And I was like, this kid has blown me away with outreach. I rarely get people that connect and send me messages anymore to say they want to network with me, other than just a quick like connection request, right? But the fact that he took the time to make a presentation and was very specific in, I want to show you and explain to you what I've learned and why I'm passionate in this field. And hopefully you have something entry level that opens up soon. He wasn't asking me, do you have an opening? He was asking me for my time to show me what he knew, what he was passionate about, and for me to keep him in mind as soon as I had something open. Such a smart idea for your top choices. I'm not saying to go do that to thousands of companies, right? That's not necessarily a great use of your time. But if you have targeted companies you're ultra interested in, finding their senior recruiters or HR team members, sending them a connection request with a message, just to network with them, for them to keep you in mind so they can get to know you and understand what you are strongest in, is a super smart approach to online networking. But your LinkedIn profile also has to, has the detail that your resume would, because in that circumstance, your LinkedIn, we're going to go look at it immediately, and we're going to, see what we can learn from that type of outreach as well. But majority of us in the recruiting space, the tech recruiting space, LinkedIn is our number one tool. So to have the information on there, to get the reach out, to get the messages, you need to have the keywords and your experience listed just as in depth as you would on your resume. So to make sure they match, and to have a resume uploaded or a link to your profile, your GitHub or whatever you're using to develop, is also like super major. So just make sure you have everything needed on your LinkedIn to put your best foot forward, especially right now in the virtual space because of COVID. You're not going to meet a lot of people face to face. So that's how most of networking is being done, is through LinkedIn and through online presence. So just make sure, you're setting yourself up for success that way. Questions. Let's take a look. So professional photos, I would say, are a pretty big deal. Not necessarily that they have to be ultra professional, but that they're a good reflection of you. Like, using humor isn't something that I would say not to do. I've definitely reached out to people that have hilarious profile photos. Doesn't matter, but to have a photo in general, definitely do it. Have it be of yourself. That's major. So people understand. And I always say, put your best foot forward, But if you lead with humor and that reflects your personality, then do it. If you're not a humorous type of character, do not put a humorous photo. That's another thing I would say. But you don't have to overthink the photos at all. Just make sure you're happy with it. It represents you well. It's up to date. You don't want to have a photo of yourself 10 years ago. That doesn't necessarily reflect, the best. If they were to offer you a position, expect someone to walk in and then completely different person is what it looks like, right? So make sure you're keeping them up to date. But yeah, don't overthink the professional photo aspect. You don't need to go have a photo shoot or be in a suit or anything like that. Just make sure, it's a photo that you're proud of and you're comfortable having it be what someone bases their, first opinion of your self-representation, like who you are, off of. So those are the things to keep in mind, right? Because especially they're not going to see you in person for a while. That's a lot in that photo that they're going to be looking at. But don't overthink it. It doesn't need to be anything super fancy. And then for conflicting information on LinkedIn versus resumes, I've dealt with that more than you would think. I coach all of the time to make sure that you're keeping them up to date, because we have this lovely era of the ability to present false information happens all of the time. So people that have been, I call it like the X syndrome, where if you've been hurt by something in the past and that's been there, it's constantly looming over your shoulder and you're trying to make sure it doesn't happen again, right? So you're approaching things with that past hard experience in your mind already that make sure they match, because the conflict is going to potentially cause issues, and it has caused issues for two people in particular I've worked with who were awesome people. They just didn't enjoy, appreciate, or want to use social media that much and didn't understand that recruiting now, they use both in tandem. Like they'll look at your LinkedIn. So I think it's a big disservice to not have a LinkedIn, but if you don't want to keep it up to date, or if you don't want to be involved in social media, just don't have one at all. Don't have something out there that's going to conflict what your resume says about yourself, because you're doing yourself a disservice. So just take the time to make sure they match. I've seen profiles that are vague. That is better if it matches what you have on your resume, your titles and everything, to have it vague. I would say that's better than to have an outdated LinkedIn that says, you're still in your second job you ever held, where you've had 7 since then on your resume, and your LinkedIn just doesn't present that information. So LinkedIn is major. Take it serious when I say that. We use it as a #1 tool in recruiting. We look at your LinkedIn. So I do a lot of my outreach first through LinkedIn, and then I look at the resumes coming into my database as a second priority, because there's generally more that I can gather of a person off of their LinkedIn than a resume, and the resume just bolsters what I can find out on their LinkedIn. As well as LinkedIn can be a spot where you have recommendations or people that speak highly of the work that you've done, that you're a great person to be around, a wonderful coworker that can be listed on your profile as well. So they have their references, your history, links to, GitHub or a website or whatever, all there in one spot that we can utilize. So definitely also ask people to leave those references for you and offer to do the same for the people you've really enjoyed working with or been in school with or anything that way. Because references, we don't necessarily call on them so much anymore, but if they're already there for us to take a look at, that just bolsters even higher. So I think that's an area on LinkedIn that gets overlooked, is the ability to leave references and to ask for references on your profile. Oh, that's a good question. So this question is, how important is it to have a clean social media presence? So that's including political, recreational behavior, and asking if employers ever look at like your Facebook and your Instagram, right? This is a tricky spot, to be honest with you, because there's legality things present. Like you have the freedom to do, you know, what you want to do with your online social media. However, if you're going to be posting things that are conflicting or may have some, especially in Utah, some legality stuff in regards to recreational choice of activity, right? If you're involved in that land and you want to be posting about it, don't have your stuff publicly able to view. So it's a personal choice what you put on your social media, but think of a hiring manager. As a hiring manager, right? If by chance you were to stumble across it, or if you're a hiring manager that's curious and you just want to look up a candidate on Facebook or Instagram, and if something there on your own profile as a hiring manager, you'd look at and be like, oh, I don't know about that, then put your stuff on private, fully private, or delete it if you want to keep it public, and understand that that is representation of yourself for anybody to access if you do not have it private. So if you're actively looking for employment, even if you don't want to have it on private for forever, if you're actively looking for employment and you're worried about it, put it on private. Lock up your profiles so that they are not able to be viewed by anybody within these companies that you're interested in, you know, being a part of, if you're concerned about it at all. And once you're employed, I mean, feel free to, you know, go public again or whatever, but just be mindful that their biases exist, unfortunately. So if you are concerned that a certain bias is going to be made based on your posts, just be smarter than that. Like I said, lock it down or remove the content. But I think all of us, especially my generation and younger, need to be more mindful that people that are viewing our content don't know us personally all of the time. So there are going to be assumptions made based on what you put out online. And that's consequences to choices, right? So like I said, if you're concerned, lock it up. You don't need to have that content public. But just be mindful, especially while you're looking for employment. I don't know how many of my hiring managers use social media. I don't go onto Facebook to look at people's personal stuff because I wouldn't want someone to necessarily go to that level considering me for employment, because they should be wanting to have conversation to get to know me, not look at, you know, posts that were made 5 years ago to determine who I am as a person. But if you're worried about it, just lock it up. Let's see. Is it more impressive to have several smaller projects on a resume or a larger, more complex project? I would say include, obviously, the more complex, the better, because that showcases, you know, the complexity of what you're able to take on, detail it out, but have a couple of the smaller ones on there too. Like if you have one full page of projects, great. Like if it showcases what you've done. So I always say list all of the projects that you're the most proud of, and detail them out. If you're proud of the work you've done and you think that it's amazing stuff that can be shown and talked about, put it on there. Like I said, it can be a 3 to 4 page resume. People can cut it down from there if needed. But if you've done excellent work and you don't have it available to show, who's responsible for someone not understanding what you can bring to the table? You are. If you don't have that available to look at or to be learned, then it's nobody else's fault but your own that it's not there presently, right? So I would say include everything you're proud of, and don't be concerned about the length of a resume. Everything you're proud of that showcases what you can do should be on that resume. And I'm happy to look at resumes and give you my professional opinion once you have them created. Don't even hesitate to find me on LinkedIn, connect with me, and then my email is all over my profile. But you can send me a message and I'll send you my email, and you can send me resumes and I'll look them over and I'll give you advice and I'll help you tailor them to make sure you're putting your best foot forward as you're applying. So you can definitely use me as a resource that way as well. But make sure everything you're proud of, you're putting on paper, because why not? That's the biggest thing. Okay, next question. I'm self-taught. Any advice on how I can gauge my skill level compared to pro developers? So with self-taught land, and in general, I would say, as a blanket statement to life, comparing yourself and being worried about where you stand versus others will only hold you back. It's not going to do any good for anybody to be worried about how you stack up compared to somebody else, because we all bring different, unique things to the table, right? What you should be looking at is gauging yourself based on your own level, which there's free tests you can take, coding tests that you can Google that will showcase your skills in certain levels. Pluralsight, if you're going to spend money on anything, I would highly recommend Pluralsight. They have tons of tests you can take that will gauge if you're a novice, intermediate, where you are with certain things that you are interested in and working in a lot. And then just continue to learn and test and grow yourself. And don't be worried about what's considered pro or whatever else, because also that varies based on a company. Like I've seen senior developers considered, architects in other companies. I've seen mid-level developers considered senior in other companies. Like it literally, it depends on opinion. Like it's the person you're talking to that gauges who someone is where based on their own perception, right? Which isn't a constant. You can't bank on that. Not everybody gauges exactly the same. So I would say do not be worried about how you compare against other people. Just be hungry to grow and to be the level that you've been doing previous for your own self. So utilize testing and stuff like that for your own knowledge base, and don't necessarily be worried about how your code compares to other people. Just be hungry to continue to make it better and better and better, and find mentors. That's a big thing. Reach out to network to find mentors, people that you've seen their code or you are interested in the company. You can connect with their senior developers and say, I want to be where you're at one day. Are you interested in networking with me to answer a couple of my questions so I can make sure that, I'm doing what I should be to end up exactly where you're at some point. Like that's also something that shouldn't be taken for granted. Mentorship is major. So make sure, not only are you looking for great employers, but you're looking for people that you're confident will help you grow your skills the way you want them grown, with great mentorship, which I know a bunch of senior developers that are awesome mentors and love to mentor. So if you want recommendations on people who would be willing to answer questions, look at your code, go over things like that with you, I definitely can make recommendations. So just reach out, and I can hook you up with the people that I know are focused in the stacks you're most interested in, because that's another thing, right? You don't want to reach out to, a senior C++ developer if you are interested in doing Microsoft stack. They're not going to be that helpful. I mean, they might have been able to, might have dabbled in it, but at the end of the day, they're not strongest where you're interested in being strongest. So you need to make sure that tech stacks align with mentorship as well. So you can definitely help point people in the right direction that way. Sweet. So that's all the questions so far that popped up in chat. Anybody else have questions on anything? Awesome. Okay, cool. And then meetups, I always recommend for networking in general. Right now, like I said, a lot of networking is being done via LinkedIn and sending connection requests and stuff. But stuff like this is happening where there's virtual hangouts and things like that. Just keep your eye out. Join groups. There's groups on LinkedIn for stacks and languages that you're most passionate about. Join those groups. Look into virtual hangouts that are happening related to what you're interested in doing, and start to be involved. Get to know people that are already working in the space that you're interested in. Look for those mentors, like I mentioned, they're massive. But just being involved in the industry and getting to know people while you're looking is going to separate you from other people. I understand it's not the most comfortable thing for a lot of you guys to do. If you're more awkward and introverted, that's totally fine. You're probably way smarter than I am and more logically based. But I can also help, coach for confidence and people skills. That's something I provide. So if you feel like you could utilize that, don't hesitate to reach out to ask for, some help in that area. I coach for interviews as well. So if you have an interview coming up and you're super anxious about it, tripping over yourself to the point where you're probably going to show up and just blank due to nerves, like, all that but you're going to show up to or log into the Zoom meetup, because that's what they are right now, to do the interview, and you think you're just going to massively brain fart due to nerves, reach out to me and ask for help, because I will coach for that. I have tricks you can do the night previous. It's going to have some homework on your side, but it's going to help counteract that brain freak out that happens with anxiety. And I've been doing this for a long time. My stuff literally works if you apply it. So just reach out for the help, because that's what I'm here for. Right now, I am looking for a couple of things for my company. We're focused in senior designer space at the current moment. I don't have a lot of openings that come through, but I know a lot of people in the industry. So don't hesitate to say, this is what I do. This is what I'm looking for. Do you know anything? So I can send resumes along, tag you in things that I see people asking for if I know your background matches. So this is where me as a network connection will pay off, right? So just do the same thing. Like, I'm telling you I'm available to help. Other people are just going to be as happy to help, but they're not going to know until, you reach out for that. So that's the last little blurb I will leave you guys with, is virtual meetups and putting your name out there, even if it's scary, is going to bolster all the applications you do. And seriously, do not hesitate to find the people of the companies that you're applying to, job boards wise, right? Look them up on LinkedIn, find their HR people, find the manager of software development, find, anybody you think is applicable to getting you to that next step. Connect with them and just introduce and say, I'm interested in this position. I actually already applied for it. Do you know what I need to do to actually, end up with an interview, or what else can I do? Or, just be proactive. And that's going to separate yourself from the highly competitive marketplace that it is right now. And do not take for granted your mental health. Things are crazy right now. The world is a very unique spot currently, but mental health will make or break you. So make sure, you're doing what you need to do to make sure that your mental health stays in a spot where you're going to present and put your best foot forward. If you do land an interview, you need to make sure that your mind, it's your biggest asset, is in the right spot. So don't get overwhelmed and stay overwhelmed. That's the biggest thing. Personal life, professional, whatever it may be. Make sure that you do what you need to do to keep your mental health top notch. While, we all struggle right now. We are all struggling right now. So you're not alone that way. Just make sure, you're staying as mentally on par as you possibly can through these like super fun times. That's my last little blurb. Let's see. One more question. What would you say is the most difficult part of getting the first junior dev job coming from either boot camp or self-taught? It's keeping your head up through the rejections. You're going to get a lot of rejections. It's junior developers. The hardest part of your career is going to be landing your first gig. Just straight up being honest with you. That's going to be the hardest part, is landing your first gig. And you just have to keep going despite all of the no's you're going to get, because you're going to get a lot of no's. You just have to keep going. Do not be disheartened by it. Don't take it too personal. It's just the obnoxious, frustrating part of being entry level to development. A lot of companies don't want to take on super entry level developers, especially ones that they don't know. That's why I'm saying networking is going to bolster. Getting to know you personally, connections are a lot mixed with, your capability, but connecting with people and not being afraid to connect with people is probably where you're going to see the biggest difference with your applications being an entry-level developer. Through this, there's someone that I helped maybe 8 months ago, met him through a meetup that I'm a co-organizer of, and suggested that he do, more meetups in the land that he's interested in, and then touch base with me, let me know how that's going, if he's having any issues that way. And he ended up networking with the CEO of a storage-based company. They really got along super well, found out that he just graduated a boot camp and was looking for a job, started to talk about code, connected, worked on a couple side projects together, helped him, and then ended up making sure his HR team offered him from 2 weeks after he met this guy at a meetup. And he wouldn't have gotten that opportunity if he didn't put himself out there and start going to meetups to connect and network with people. So that is the biggest thing that you don't take for granted, is these virtual meetups and participating in them, making sure people know who you are, your questions, if you have them, you're asking them, all of those things, so that they can start to connect the dots of, this is who this person is, this is what they're doing, this is what they're looking for. But just keep going. A lot of people quit. There's so many bootcamp grads and junior developers I see get frustrated and just stop trying and move into other career paths because they let the rejection get to them. Like, rejection is definitely going to be a part of finding your first gig. Just keep going and ask questions and keep bettering yourself. It's all about having that discipline, because at that point it's discipline, because it's frustrating to get told no over and over and over again. But even my senior developers get told no over and over and over again when they're looking for a new role. So you just can't give up. If it's something you really want, you can't give up. And you just keep going for it. And you do what you got to in the meantime, right? But you keep going, and then you reach out for help, and you grow your resources, and you keep learning, and you apply different things, you try different things, you ask questions. You just have to keep going. So biggest hurdle is the ratio of quitting that I see from bootcamp grads and junior developers, because they get told no, maybe even 50 times. And that 50th time was just too much. And so they quit. So just don't quit. Keep going and utilize your resources. So I'm also here if people need to vent. Trust me, I like my day to be broken up. So if you got a really obnoxious rejection letter and you need someone that will understand and you want to cuss about it, you can call me. I'm here for that. So, I mean, just keep your mind right, keep going. Perception is everything. Perception and attitude will change the way you feel about the things that happen to you. I'm a cheese ball that way. To make sure that you stay positive through, trials. It's not easy. It definitely doesn't come naturally, but you got to remind yourself of the strengths, the positives, that you are chasing your dreams. I'm hoping that you are right now, right? And that you just keep going after what you want. A lot of the time we stand in our own way and then make excuses for it. Don't allow yourself to stand in your own way. Do everything you possibly can, and then just make sure your mind is staying healthy. Biggest two things: hustle for what you want, and then keep your mind in a good spot that you're going to be doing okay. And then you know who I am. So if you think my energy, my cheeseball statements, anything else would help you get through your day, don't hesitate to reach out. I really mean it. So I'm down to look at resumes, coach for interviews, give positive, hippy dippy, here's some inspiration that really helped me, like whatever it may be, I'm here for it. So just let me know what you need. Jen has my contact information as well, if for any reason you can't find me on LinkedIn, but I'm definitely there and I'm on it every day. So hopefully this was very valuable to you guys. Let me know if there's anything else that I can assist you with moving forward. And I wish you success and the best And just let's all just stay healthy, stay happy, and do what we can to make the world a better place. That's what I have to leave with.
Shay, you are so awesome. Yeah, I'm excited for when we get to hang out in person again. I don't know if you have any time for other questions or if you're needing to go now.
Oh yeah, no, anybody who wants to hang around, ask a couple more questions, I'm definitely here. I don't have anything going on, so I'll hang out for a minute. But yeah, I think we touched on the most massively important parts of representing yourself right now. But yeah, I'm definitely here for more questions or anything else, so I can hang out.
One question that I saw is, how have you seen the tech recruiting industry change this past year? So I know you especially have been affected by that.
Oh yeah, I was laid off. I was laid off from COVID initially when it all started in March. So it was a job I had for 5 years. I did not see it coming. I did not expect it. It threw me for a loop. And it was interesting. The hiring had changed quite a bit, even in the very beginning, because of the economy, right? So there's a lot of jobs that will be out there that they have every intent to hire for, but then in 2 weeks, that will change based on budget, based on deeper struggle, based on projections made for budgetary reasons for the success or failure of a company. I mean, accountants and financial teams in almost any organization right now are working a million miles a minute to try to project, understand, and fine-tune things to make sure that companies do not, go under pretty much. Like everybody's just trying to survive through this like little crash in our economy due to COVID and everything else that's happening. But there's going to be a lot of, they're not intending it to be fake. However, like I said, things change even within 2 weeks. So there's going to be positions you apply for. You may have one interview for it even, and then you'll reach out for an update and they'll say, oh, this position got put on hold. That's happening so much right now. Also, companies have needed to take time to adjust to what working virtual looks like for them. Not every single company had policies in place, the equipment required, VPNs set up, which is crazy to me, to allow their companies to log in from home and work, that there's been a lot of companies having to quickly adjust to what allowing their employees to work from home looks like. So I think majority have gone through that, but there's some that started late and are still going through that adjustment of the remote piece. Also, there's industries that deal with sensitive information that cannot allow their employees to work 100% remote. It's not because they take for granted health of the population at all. It's just your government sectors, as well as your financial, your banking spaces. Their information that they handle is so highly sensitive, they literally cannot support 100% remote work. So I know a lot of government companies some of them are even doing partial remote, but when you have your responsibilities that deal with that specific set of no zones for info, right? You have to go on site, but they're providing like super rigorous things for that. So you just have to be mindful that it's not only just an adjustment for you as a seeker, it's an adjustment for companies too. And I think that's the biggest part. And being open-minded, if you don't have any major health concerns or people that, are high risk for the virus, being open to these types of roles that are wanting you on site part of the time is going to be beneficial to you, because not everybody is wanting to do that right now, right? So if that's something you're not concerned about, targeting financial sectors or the government space is smart for you, because you're not worried about going on site. If that's something that doesn't bother you, that separates you from the majority of the population, and target government sector and banks, to be quite straight. So that's a strategy you can use. Also, interviewing, that process has changed within the last year because of COVID. Everything is now Zoom or just phone based. and selling yourself over Zoom, or I shouldn't even say selling yourself, that's a crappy term, but representing yourself, talking about your background, putting your best foot forward through a Zoom interview or over the phone is more challenging than in person majority of the time. Like body language is harder to read through a video interview than in person, as well as tone inflection for your voice when you're speaking over a phone. It's harder to make sure that they're really getting the correct picture of you. So definitely look up, you can do a bunch of research on how to ace phone interviews and Zoom interviews and stuff like that you can do on your own. Or if you want tricks and tips from me, definitely reach out. But that's how the interview process has changed, which to me in some instances it's been better because it's quickened a lot of the steps. I feel like it's a 2-step process and then a hire, where previous it might have been 4 steps because they want everybody involved in a Zoom instead of you go on site and you meet with the team and then you go again and you meet with the VP and you go one more time and you meet with the VP and other people of their team. So like it's shortened the process for a lot of companies, but it is harder to make sure that they understand everything you bring to the table when you're doing it over video versus in person. That energy piece. I'm hippy dippy, right? Remember that. So like your energy, you can't feel it like you would feel it in person. So just make sure, like I said, you're studying up for your interviews on how to ace like Zoom interviews and phone interviews right now. Because if you are a rock star at those, that's also going to separate you from people that struggle with phone or video interviews. So that's another big change. But hiring also obviously has dropped quite a bit. We'll probably ramp up again, I would assume, end of this year, beginning of next year, but that's to be seen. It's going to depend. I know that the companies that have had to have massive layoffs, they're not always going to struggle. They were successful, massively successful for a while for a reason, right? They're going to be massively successful again for a very particular reason. It's just a matter of time. So keep your eye on your top companies. Understand that from an organization perspective, they have to do what they need to do to survive. Just keep applying and know that the competition is huge, but also that there's a lot of fear out there too. So if you're proactive and you swallow your fear and you keep going and you keep doing it, there's people that are going to take a couple months to decompress, to see what happens, to gauge if it's smart for them to even be out applying or whatever, right? There are jobs out there that are 100% remote that you can do easily from home that are not going to be added stressors, but people don't think of stuff like that right now. They're just overwhelmed. So I know a bunch of people that are just simmering, just waiting to see what happens. If you go right now and you keep going, you're going to be the people that are terrified by the second wave of COVID or whatever else. So just keep in mind that only you can only control what you can control, right? And just make sure that you're controlling those things, that you're putting in the effort, because nothing magically results in what you want. It doesn't just pop into your lap. You have to have effort there. So make sure you're proud of the effort you put in, and you just keep going. Biggest thing, keep going, and understand that technology is one of the best industries to be looking into right now in terms of, stability. Tech is not going anywhere. We use it way too much in the modern world. So our industry will continue to boom. Just right now, it's an uncertain area, but it's still a great place to be involved. It's going to bounce back. It's just a matter of when. But there's companies still hiring. My company is still doing extremely well, for example. So we're still writing new business. COVID hasn't hit us at all. It's like it didn't even exist for us. We're very unique that way and blessed that way. But there's got to be other companies that are the same. So you just have to, ask the right questions, do the research too when you're applying, utilize Glassdoor, look into reviews of the managers involved, all of those things. It's just more research, more time, and more diligence, I would say, are the things that you need to take currently to offset the challenges that are present in the marketplace. But we're not as partially impacted as some would think. for sure. There's just a lot of competition because of the layoffs. That's probably very long-winded, but hopefully that answered that question.
No, really good, Shay. I do have a question. Do you find companies will be switching to a lot of remote work permanently after this? Just seeing as everything's getting set up now and it saves on overhead?
Yes, I actually think it'll result in some great changes to remote policies and flexibility that way. I mean, we've all heard the rumors that I think it's Facebook right now that is thinking about doing 100% remote, especially the companies based in California. If they don't have to pay rent for their massive buildings over there, do you know how much that saves a company? So, I mean, I think that's something that's going to be continued to be a trending topic. And do we implement this across the board? What are we going to do moving forward? I know for Utah, we had very strict, basically almost everywhere said no remote. We want everyone on site, which now, I mean, especially for me, I'm going to be partial remote for the foreseeable future. Like remote's just going to be a part of my day-to-day, week-to-week vibe. But I think it's going to change a lot of companies and how they view remote work, because a lot of people were concerned that the productivity wasn't going to be there, right? Well, we're forced to work remote right now. Is your productivity struggling? No, it's not weird because we're adults and we do our jobs, whether they're at home or in the office. So I think that's going to be more widely accepted, and there's definitely going to be policy changes probably everywhere, I would expect. But whether or not they embrace the complete remote 100% moving forward is another thing. I think Utah will probably be one of the last to embrace 100% remaining to work, just because from working in the Utah market for 5 years, they were so strict with even 1 to 2 days remote that I highly doubt they're just going to adapt a 100% remote policy from this. But I think more flexibility for remote-based work is definitely going to be there. I just think it's going to be a couple more years before, you know, that 100% all the time is a trendy thing and a common thing for Utah, to be honest with you. But it's definitely a trending topic in majority of the corporate world at the current moment.
All right, good stuff. Great talk, by the way.
Thank you. It's casual. It's nothing, you know, super fancy. I just wanted to make sure I was helping as best as I can in the areas that, you know, people actually wanted to learn more about. And I'm definitely, like I said, always here for more help. So more questions, I'll gladly take them on today, right now, or in the future. So just ping me.
There's a couple in there. I don't know if you saw one which says, we're looking for a recruiter. Do you think it matters if you find a local recruiter? Do you scroll down? Maybe that's why you didn't see him.
I didn't scroll down. There's so much I missed, you guys. Ooh. Rookie mistake. Okay, let's see. Okay. Do you think it matters if you find a local recruiter? I would recommend local because they live here. So they know cost of living. They understand what it's like, you know, commute wise, all of that jazz. I mean, right now commute's not such a big deal, but there's a lot of companies that say remote until COVID's over and then you'll have to go to the office. Our population boom has affected a lot of our commutes. I mean, for me, I used to be able to get up to the east side in like 20 minutes. Now it takes me like 45. It's insanity. Well, or it did pre-COVID. That the local scoop is definitely more reliable. However, I also experienced, I was a national, I recruited nationally for a bunch of Fortune 500 companies for a long time. So I wasn't local to the states I was calling in all the time, but I was very knowledgeable in who my client was and what they were looking for. So I think if you're going to talk to a recruiter that's not local, you need to ask a bunch of questions. Make sure that they actually know their stuff on who they're representing, A, and B, that they took the time to understand market rates, cost of living, all of those things for the state that they're involved in. Because I would look up all of that information before I started calling or reaching out to anybody in those other states. Because you sound like an idiot if you call into California and you ask someone to work for $55K and they're living in San Francisco. Like, they might as well be homeless. Like, that's not going to fly. That's not going to work. So you have to be knowledgeable as a recruiter. And that's how you find, okay, how am I going to phrase this to make sure that it's as PC as possible, right? So I'm familiar with the fact that there's some very awful recruiters out there that give what we do a super bad name. Just use your gut, ask the questions you need, and make sure you're picky with the recruiters that you decide to partner up with, because it makes a huge difference. You can tell if someone's genuine. You can tell if they're actually worried about you, or if they're worried about making, money. They just look at you as money, not as an actual person with goals, interests, and a family. Like, there's definitely some of us that do this for the wrong reasons, but you can spot that. So I'd say be very picky with who you choose to work with, and make sure that you're confident in their capabilities, because if you're partnering with them, they're representing you. They have your information. If you're not impressed with them, do you think the hiring managers they're trying to work with are going to be impressed with them? No, they're not. If they don't know what they're talking about, do you think they're going to be able to highlight your background like it needs to be highlighted to show that you're capable of the job that you're actually interested in, that they're calling you about? No, because they don't even know that Angular JS and, Angular are different. They're different, okay? Not every recruiter knows that. They're going to highlight incorrectly and make your background look stupid and make themselves look stupid. So just make sure that you're picky with the recruiters you decide to work with, because it will either help you so much and you'll be empowered and learn a lot and have great experiences with that recruiter, or B, you're going to cuss us all out for the rest of eternity, have so much frustration involved and unneeded weirdness because you decided to pass your information to that person and say yes to that person. Local recruiters, I would say, for the win is the way to go. However, there's some very great national recruiters that I know personally that I would say it varies. It depends on the knowledge base that they bring to the table, if they know what they're talking about, and if they take the time to genuinely understand what you're all about instead of rushing you on and off the phone. That's a red flag, in my opinion, from the recruiter seat. So just be careful, because there's some real crappy recruiters out there. So that's my PSA on recruiters and who you decide to work with. Let's see. Another question. What advice do you have for someone who wants to connect with people but isn't good at it because they're shy and too comfortable? So they enjoy staying at home. They prefer to be at home and in isolation. So biggest things I would say is to start small. People skills are needed to move forward in any career, to be quite honest with you. Like, yes, being smart, absolutely. If you're smarter than most, you already bring this major plus to the table. But having conversation, collaboration, all of that jazz is usually required to keep moving up and to be involved in the companies that have a fabulous culture. So my advice to those that struggle with people that are uncomfortable, that are shy, is to start small and look up. You can do research on this topic too, on how to overcome shyness when, wanting to hit new networking goals or whatever it may be, or make friends to be more social. There's definitely lots of articles and resources out there that you can research on your own, or, we can start here with me, which you just would have to connect with me. Let me know that this is an area you're concerned about, and we'll practice. I'll have video interviews, not interviews, but just like little chats we do where looking people in the eye is major. I know it's hard to do sometimes when you're super shy and uncomfortable with having to socialize, but looking people in the eye just working on your self-confidence, understand that like people actually want you to be around and want to hear what you have to say is major. And the positives you bring to your presence, being in a social aspect, highlighting those, helping you realize those, it will just help you get out of your own way. So there's lots of little things you can do. And if you have a good friend, even if they're online, like you game with them or whatever, right? To ask to do like a FaceTime or even to just talk over the phone instead of online, that's a small step. So make small steps that you're comfortable with that aren't gonna like traumatize you to never wanting to try to be social again. Because if you're in severe isolation and have been for a long time because people make you uncomfortable, I wouldn't recommend you to jump right out into public and come meet with us at Gracie's, because we do a meetup at Gracie's. That's so much fun. When COVID is not a thing, we'll be doing it again, where we just meet, have drinks and chat. I wouldn't recommend you doing that if you've been in severe isolation for a long time. It's the small things first. So reach out to people, start talking to people in person more and not through text, not through, chat rooms or anything like that. Just be vocal and work on it. But I definitely can help with that. I help with it all of the time. And I'm not judgmental about it at all. I have a brother that is very much that way, that I've helped him because I am the opposite. I talk too much, obviously, if you can't tell. And I usually am way loud constantly, which is not everyone's cup of tea, BTW. I've had problems with it before. So there's pluses and negatives in like anything, right? So being shy and introverted isn't a bad thing. However, understanding that being social is a big part of life, and it's a part of life that adds to your overall health. Technically, there's research done on it that everybody needs a little bit of socialism in their life, being social, that it's only going to add to you to work on it, but it's not, you don't need to ever become the social butterfly that I am. You don't need to try to be that. You probably won't ever be that. It's just to develop what you already naturally have and be more comfortable is what the goal should be. So that's the biggest thing, is don't be down on yourself that you're a shy character. That's nonsense. If you think that's a bad thing, then you need to check that right now. But definitely is a goal to be more comfortable. It should be something you have on, the docket, but accept that you're introverted, and we need introverted in life, or we'd have thousands of me walking around and there would be zero silence ever, which would not be a good thing. So I think it's a confidence as well as just the small steps to slowly creep into whatever goals you have. And we can talk about what those goals are and then make some game plans for you to do probably a couple days a week, try those things and then build on it, right? Like any skill, you have to practice it to get better. So we'll have to define those based on what your actual goals are when it comes to being more social and networking. So my advice is going to be specific based on what you want to get out of it, I guess is the best answer after I just word vomited all of the rest of that previous. But there's a lot of people that struggle with not wanting or feeling uncomfortable with having to socialize or to network. So you're definitely not unique. There's a ton of people actually that struggle with that. So do the research online or reach out to me, because that's what I'm expert in. That's probably one of my biggest strengths. So I think that's all of those questions on the side, because I scrolled, Jen, I scrolled. Those questions are answered, but I'm definitely, any more questions you have, or, any personal anything, I'm here for it. So I'll hang out for a bit longer, but you definitely, if you guys have things to do, don't feel like you need to stick around. But yeah, I'll hang out for a bit more.
Thanks, Shay. You're so awesome. I'm just so excited to hang out with you at Gracie's again. Sorry to the people that are not based in Utah.
Salt Lake.
You guys will have to, I guess, take a flight out and hang out with us. It's a pretty good time. We talk a lot about cats.
We do.
Hopefully you guys enjoy talking about cats.
We do talk about cats. and many other things. But yeah, we're a good time. If you're not from here and you come in to visit, definitely Jen and I, let us know.
Do you happen to have like many connections with tech recruiters in other areas? Like, if it would be great if you knew, like I know a number of the people in here live in Portland. Like if you knew of any like either bad eggs of tech recruiters or.
Oh dang, you're asking me to call people out, Jen?
No. I'm not saying like on here. I'm saying like if someone were to reach out and be like, hey, have you heard good things about this tech recruiting company?
Oh yeah.
Or
they can reach out. Yeah, they can reach out and ask me. I do have friends in other states that recruit, so I would be happy to make introductions. Or I know people that are based here in Salt Lake but have been doing nationwide recruiting for a long time, and I trust them, and I know they treat people really well. They do their research, and they're excellent recruiters, or I would not recommend them, right? Because that's my name on the line, which regardless of where I work, and this is for anybody too, regardless of where you work, how you behave with people, the name you make for yourself is your brand, quote unquote, right? So you take that wherever you go. So your word and should mean more than probably anything else, because you piss off one person and they talk to several others, and then that's where a bad reputation starts to form, right? So just be mindful. Do your research on people. Like I said, there's Glassdoor, there's their LinkedIn. If you get contacted by someone and they make your gut go, oh man, I don't know about this, like I'm questioning it, you Google them, look at their name, look at who they're involved with the company, do research on the company, and then decide if you want to work with them or not based on that research you do, right? But sometimes a cringe in the gut is enough for you to be like, no, it's not worth it. Like, I don't trust this person. So just, I'm definitely here for any, like, you can ask me and if I know them or if I know about their company, I'll definitely let you know what I think. But there's way more recruiters and recruiting companies out there than people I know. So definitely research. Like, you cannot form an actual opinion until you've looked at the information, right, on anything. So I would always suggest research so much until you're confident in, your decision on companies to join and recruiters to work with. As well as job boards. There's some job boards that are terrible. So where you put your resume, there's a couple job boards that are excellent. So I'd recommend for job boards, Indeed, LinkedIn is a job board. You didn't know it probably, but it's a job board. So LinkedIn is your first actual, and then Indeed, Monster is all right. ZipRecruiter actually does pretty good. Those are probably the top ones that I would say to use. Career Builder actually also isn't bad. Career Builder is a pretty good one as well. Those are probably the top job boards. But I'd say ZipRecruiter and LinkedIn should probably be your top two. I think those are the best.
Would you say on average with someone that you're working with that has like more experience versus less, do you see much of a difference in time frames as far as how long it generally takes between the time that someone starts looking for a job to when they actually land one?
I would say the biggest difference between time that someone is looking is the effort and the organization, actually. So I would be organized with who you reach out to. I date when you applied, what company you applied, who you reached out to, if you went the extra mile and connected and sent messages, write down their names, how they're connected, have it like in a little calendar, or you can be old school and just pen and paper it, whatever is best for you. Stay organized with it. Then, for follow-up, I would put reminders on your calendar to follow up a week from all the applications you just did last week, to set a day for follow-up, and you're reaching out to those key people you reached out to initially a week from the day you applied, and you're pinging them and saying, hey, I know it's only been a week, but I'm just real curious. I'm excited about the opportunity. Do you have, information on next steps? Or Can I schedule an interview? Like, who do I need to reach out to if you're not the person for me to be talking to? Like, being organized and setting reminders and having a game plan, like an organized game plan when you're applying. Those are the people that are in the market, out the market, like that. Because sometimes, especially if you're working with a recruiter that represents like 50 different companies, we have so much we're doing. It's not that you don't matter. It's that we're juggling 70 things. And sometimes all we need is a quick text message or a voicemail or an email for us to be like, oh yeah, let me go ask. And then you ask and you get the information. If you don't follow up, then you're being forgotten, not intentionally, but just because there's so much going on. So be organized and do your follow-ups. That makes the biggest difference. It's all about how you approach applying that will determine how long you are on the market looking or what's going on. But I've also had people that have gotten several offers and they don't feel good about them, so they've turned them down and stay looking. So that's one thing. I know times are weird right now, but still be picky enough, right? Like, you want to keep that in mind. Like, don't, choices out of desperation never do anybody any good. That's a blanket statement too that you can apply to anything. Desperation is a no bueno decision-making land. So just make sure you're confident in your choice to join somewhere before you say yes. You've done the research. You've done everything needed. I would say it's better for you to continue to work a customer service job from home or whatever it may be while you look for a quality first tech position than for you to agree to the first thing that, you know, you're offered. If it's a sweatshop where you're going to hate it, it might suck your passion for what you're doing away from you. And then you quit before you even began. It's going to, all of the hopes and dreams you had for this career could be ruined based on the employer you decide to, you know, pick. So be choosy, not unrealistically choosy, but just understand who you are and what you want, and that there are legit, like, just bad cultures. And if it's worth it for you to join one to get your foot in the door or not, because some people can handle it, other people cannot. So that's going to be a personal choice, right? Does Glassdoor have a job board? I didn't know Glassdoor had a job board. Someone said that they've had results from ZipRecruiter. They forgot about Monster, but then they said there's also Glassdoor, which I didn't know that Glassdoor had a job board. If they do, I've never used it, so I can't speak on whether or not it's a good one personally. But if you're using it and you have results, please let me know. I would.
That was me.
Okay. Have you had a job board?
I haven't got any contacts back, but I've only been looking for a week or two.
Okay.
So it might take a little.
Keep me posted on that, because I literally didn't know that they had a job board. So that's one for me to potentially try out. I'll probably bring it up to my boss and we'll play around with it. So
They do, and Women Who Code have one as well.
Oh, yes. I was a part, they have a meetup that I was a part of. I used to attend the Women Who Code meetup. It's been a very long time, if I'm being honest, but their meetup was great.
Their website's great. And Glassdoor's, their website's great too. ZipRecruiter, I've gotten some contacts from different recruiters that also use it for different positions.
Yeah.
On it because they looked at my background, because I came from IT, so they were contacting me about that, and I wanted to go into engineering. So, but they were perfectly nice. So it's like, yeah, people are actually like using that and looking at.
Yes.
Even if it's not as pretty as the other ones.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. But ZipRecruiter, you'll get responses. Another thing about people reaching out on job boards based on your resume or your LinkedIn, understand that not every recruiter takes the time to actually look at your profile. A lot of them will send out mass emails. So I would say there's people that get easily offended by that. I can understand how obnoxious it is getting blown up for things that you're not even a fit for, but I would say at least you're seeing the opportunity, right? Like, even if it's not a fit, at least you're seeing the opportunity. And also notate who's doing that, because that also will tell you something about that recruiter. They're not doing their due diligence if they're spamming you like that. So notate the recruiter and where the recruiter works. The ones that are like hitting you up for, a data science position and you have literally nothing on your resume that would even ever give someone an inkling of, oh yeah, this person is perfect. They're just mass messaging. And I personally hate that approach. But there's a lot of recruiters that do it. So I would say don't be offended by it. At least you know that there's those jobs out there, right? You're seeing jobs. At least you have the keywords to allow you to be hit with those mass messages, right? Because I've actually had friends that get hit with a mass message, ended up working at a great company through that mass message. Maybe that recruiter wasn't the best of the best, but they weren't the worst of the worst. Makes sense. So like just gauge like opportunity is opportunity and who you have to work with to get to where you want. It's a small detail. For others, it's a huge detail, but just don't limit yourself. Look at the opportunity and then ask the questions. And maybe you can be the helping hand that a recruiter needs to step up, their game to be better. Because we all have to start out as a newbie. As a newbie, I spammed people because I didn't know better. Like that was way back in the day, but I did it and I had to learn. And I'm grateful for the people that had the conversations with me to say, hey, listen, I actually don't do that. So like we all have to learn and start somewhere, right? So just understand, ask questions, and then make decisions based on your seeking for more information. That's going to be the best. Don't ever just blanket assume. Like always reach out, ask questions, and then make decisions after you have the information. But it's easy to be offended, but it's also easy to make sure that you understand why that happened to you, right? So ask questions, always ask questions for better understanding. But yeah, I mean, I would say if you're getting hit by random positions, just pat yourself on the back because you have keywords. The gnarly put the keywords in there that everybody gets super upset about. You want those though. So just do it and vent frustration, but there's necessary evils, I guess, that exist when you're looking for a new position and when you're dealing with recruiters. So just take it on the chin. And like I said, be that person that educates a recruiter that maybe just needs some help on how to level up and be a better recruiter because they don't know until they know, right? Just approach it that way instead of being upset and frustrated that they're one of hundreds that operate that way. Let them know that it's not appreciated and what they could possibly do to take what they do to the next level. Like just look for ways to help people and to better yourself and others instead of to continue to be upset and frustrated and dive deeper into that dark hole, right? Negativity produces negativity. And I've done it. I've been real negative and I've had to check myself and been like, wow, my days have been sucking. Why? Oh, because I've decided to lead with a negative attitude consistently for the past 3 days. How am I going to check that? I'm going to write down what I'm having negative feelings about, right? And then also write down what I have to feel positive about, and then just decide to focus on this side instead of that side and see if I can correct any of those negative feelings by having conversation or doing research or whatever it may be. Like mindset is a choice. Like, yes, there's things that we're naturally inclined to react to, but overall, you have to be able to recognize and check yourself and understand when your mindset is standing in your way. So I would say job boards are going to be frustrating and also benefit. Keep that in mind. Adding keywords to your profiles are going to be a huge benefit, but also leads to probably some of that frustrating stuff that I just talked about. Understand that, and just look for the good, dig through all of the spam, find the things you're interested in, ask the questions, and then stay organized. That's massive. I always say, write it down, stay organized, because it's going to make your life easier. You're going to know who to hold accountable, and you're going to be able to follow up and get answers, and you wouldn't otherwise. There's too many applications. If you don't notate and write it down, you won't remember what position was where and when you applied to it, right? So just stay organized. That's a huge thing that a lot of people don't think to do when they're applying.
Sounds like you need to just go into like general like life coaching, just change everyone's life.
Listen, I've made jokes about that. I've also made my therapist makes jokes about it. She, yeah, it's a good time. So yes, I see a therapist. Everybody should see a therapist, by the way. Yeah, like I said, mental health for the win. Make sure your mind stays where it needs to be to fulfill what you want out of yourself, right? So you can only do your best when you're feeling your best, and your mind has a lot to do with how you feel. So do what you need to do that. But yes, spreadsheets for the win. If you want to do spreadsheets or Word or whatever it may be to stay organized. I love spreadsheets, but that's not everyone's jam. Like I said, even if it's paper and pen, like staying organized and tracking things is better than nothing. Then you know who's following up, who's following through, and you can hold people accountable. And it's going to lessen the level of complaining you will be able to do, I guess, which is a good thing, because you can complain after you've sent like a couple follow-ups and they've ghosted you. Then you know that's a legit complaint. Like you've given them the opportunity to follow up with you and they're ghosting. That's their decision. But one application, I don't think justifies complaints if you never hear back on it, if you never followed up. Like that's just my personal stance on it. There's too many people applying right now to think that one application deserves a follow-up. There's hundreds right now. So you have to reach out. You got to be proactive. So just stay organized with your job search. It'll make your life and those that are involved in it so much easier. And then research is massive. And reach out to get therapy or do online therapy, or because literally the internet is so fabulous that way that a lot of tricks, if you're struggling with something mentally, you can look it up and you can do the research and you can find out a way to cope and to improve it through online resources. But I'm definitely a fan of my therapist, but I found a great one for me. Not every therapist is, a quality therapist for you. It's a compatibility thing, just like you and an employer or you and a friend, like you and, whoever you're involving in your mental health. It's a compatibility thing. They have to understand you. They have to, you have to connect that way for real, true work to be done. So I harp a lot right now on mental health because I see so many people struggling with it because of, this unprecedented everything going on. So seriously, do what you need to do to stay moving forward. Like, don't allow this to put a pause on your life. Like, it's going to hold us back in some areas, yes, but there's still ways that you can move forward and feel like you're moving forward. And people fall into depressive funks when they feel like they're not achieving, when they're not producing, when they're not hitting even small goals, right? So set yourself up to feel accomplished every day by making goals of whatever things you are looking to improve or to learn or whatever it may be. So organization and bigger picture mindset are the things that I preach a lot of things, but those are going to be my main two for today.
I'm curious with regard to like boot camps, and I feel like making programming more accessible to people. Have you seen an increase in diversity within the industry?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, Kitty, you can't do that. So there's been a huge change. So even I'll say 3 years ago, right? Like even 3 years ago, boot camp grads, they had it way harder being looked at for positions than even now. So like boot camp grads 3 years ago and previous to that, a lot of people laughed at the knowledge that they gained from the boot camps. They just didn't take it seriously, right? But they've been more widely embraced because A, my generation, going to school is so expensive. We cannot afford like debt from school and a mortgage at the same time. So you have to decide, what are you going to do? Are you going to go to school and live at home or rent the rest of your life with friends? Or are you going to, you know, buy a home, start a family, all of that stuff? Like literally you have to pick between the two because of the finances involved. That a lot of people my age and younger are going boot camp route because it's not nearly as expensive. It gives you a good knowledge base to start, and then you can run with it. So because all of the newer developers, majority are coming out of code camps instead of degrees, companies they've been more or less forced to consider them for employment. But also, I feel like whoever decided to do combination of resume with GitHub or providing code samples, that's where the biggest change, the biggest shift happened, because that's when hiring managers were able to realize these people coming out of code camps were coding just as well as some of their 3-year employees. Like they could hold their own. They were just as knowledgeable and capable. And that's when things really started to shift. Also, there's as the older generations are retiring, the youngers are stepping up into leadership spots. And a lot of the youngers that are now getting into software development management titles know people that run the boot camps, have been instructors at boot camps, have family members that went through a boot camp. And so they're just more accepting of people with that background because they personally have been involved. They know the curriculum. Like I know someone right now that, is it Helio? Is that one of the boot camps? Helio, are you familiar? He wrote curriculum for Helio. He's like a 15-year developer. So he stands by Helio because he straight up wrote the curriculum for it. So of course he's going to be like, oh yeah, those people know because they learned what I provided, right? So there's just that shift that also has happened, which I think is a great thing, in my opinion, to be more accepting of how people learn and understand that not everybody even thrives in a formal classroom setting. Like some people just don't do well in that type of environment. Doesn't mean that they're not capable of learning and excelling in development, but they just can't do formal class structure. It's just not for them. So it's just less of a bias is there. Doesn't mean that there's still not biases from companies and hiring managers. That's where it's your job to make sure that you're showcasing your abilities, so where they can take it and, you know, basically shove it, I guess, more or less, but to where you're proving them wrong, right? So just showcase what you can do. Like they don't know unless they see and they understand. So I'll harp on it for the rest of eternity. Put it on your resume, link it, showcase it, show them what you can do. Showing and talking about it is great, but the end result of what you actually can do, you know, trumps how you can talk about it. So learning to talk about it better, yes, that's something that needs to be done, but you need to have the quality proof to showcase first, I think, is the biggest thing. So just keep working, take on personal projects that challenge you, showcase them, explain them, and then just keep applying straight up. Just keep applying, keep connecting, keep reaching out, because you never know when that one person is going to end up to be. It could be your first fabulous job that leads to lots of growth. It could be your dream job from the beginning. It could even be a foot in the door to be an intern to eventually be a permanent developer within a team. Like you don't know what connecting with people can provide opportunity-wise. So just put your best foot forward and just keep going, for sure.
Don't forget to scroll.
Okay. Thanks for the heads up.
There looks like there's one more question in the chat. Move on.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, while job hunting, would you also recommend looking at applying for software engineer apprenticeships? Oh yeah, so I just talked about internships a little bit. So I'd say, because a lot of employers will look at an internship as actual professional experience. So don't shy away from internships or apprenticeships. But I mean, if they're unpaid, I guess cool, but I would say look at the ones that pay you for your time, right? That's going to be more of a added, because you got paid to do it. It's paid professional experience that will bolster your resume. But also along with apprenticeships and internships, I would be open to 3-month durations of contracts. If you're working on a W-2 somewhere, if it's like 20 an hour or whatever it may be, for 3 months, you're working professionally doing development work. You can put it on your resume. I wouldn't turn away like short-term contracts as a new developer either. Like, depends on, you know, the employer. Like I said, be picky about the culture, especially if, you know, you can't hack it in certain types of cultures. Like, be picky about the culture. But contracts are a great way to get a lot of experience and quickly, because not a lot of people will consider a 3-month contract. They're going to say no to it, right? That your chances of getting hired for something like that is higher than a direct level, like a direct hire for an entry level spot. There's less competition for a 3-month contract. So I would say be open-minded and still apply like the research part and everything else, but be open-minded to short-term contracts, as well as internships and apprenticeships, goodness gracious, as well, because you never know what those could turn into. Like, you could end up interning for the summer and then meet the right people, get hired internally on a team, and you're set. You found your first development job, right? So I would say be way open-minded when it comes to duration and types of opportunities to develop professionally while you're starting out. Massively important. Yes, that's so smart. I'm glad you know that. So when you are applying, you don't need to have 90% or 100% of what they're looking for. I even say if you have 70% of what that job is asking for, apply to it, but make sure that that 70% is very clear on the resume before you click send, right? So absolutely don't be afraid to apply to things that you know you're not the most senior of a fit for, like you don't hit everything they need. 70% it. Keep that in your head. Do you have 70% of what they're asking for? If the answer is yes, you should be putting in an application. That's excellent to bring up. That's wonderful. So thank you for adding that. Because ability to learn is huge. So if you have 70% of what someone is looking for and are teachable, and it comes across that you're teachable and you learn fast, or you're capable of ramping up pretty quickly, you could end up at a 70% fit, be one of the better employees that they've hired. So don't sell yourself short. Don't overthink applying. 70% fit or more, you should definitely do an application.
Yeah, the 80 was just out of my ass. But like with imposter syndrome and stuff, it's like, yeah, just if it looks like something you can do, go for it.
Yes, because you never know unless you try. So it's always going to be a no unless you actually explore it to see, right? Like, you don't try, it's an obvious no. But like, you put in an application and there's a bunch of potential that is there that you have yet to discover. So definitely, like I said, confidence is huge. And I know that my super logical people, my fabulous developers, because you guys are wonderfully logical, you second guess what you bring to the table a lot. I feel like you guys suffer from imposter syndrome more than the rest of us that are not as logical. And you just need to be reminded that you're super talented where you're super talented, that you bring all these fabulous things to the table and you are capable. Like, you should try for that. Like, so if you need someone, if you're on the fence and you know you're being a bit too analytical about a position that you see, talk to someone that you know is going to hype you up and get you to apply, because you should apply. Even if it's a no, you're not, if you get one of those instant responses of you're not qualified for this job, at least now you know you tried. Like, it's better to try and get a no than to not even attempt and then to have it for sure be a no because you decided to not go for it. So I'd say do exercises to build your confidence while you're interviewing. Everyone should put that as a thing to do every day. It's an easy check mark for anybody to do while they're going through, unemployment or whatever it may be. Do activities, even they're like 5 minutes to build your confidence. So look into what those activities could be. There's a bunch of research you can do. Don't make it way too complicated though. Just something that strikes you that is helpful. Like for a lot of people, it's a mantra or something that inspires them every morning and reminds them, of what they're actually chasing, like what they're trying to achieve in life. Find that and put it somewhere where you see it every single day. Or it could even be you set a reminder, like a timer, alarm. Goodness gracious, I'm forgetting English right now. You set an alarm on your phone that will go off with that mantra, like in the middle of the day where it makes you look at it, right? Like make sure you view it every day, wherever you decide to put it. I think that makes a huge difference for mindset. But confidence, definitely every single person should work on, but especially my more logical folks. Make sure you're working on your confidence. I've had to tell super crazy smart architects to not forget what they're good at and to be confident in what they bring to the table, which blows my mind because they're way smarter than me. But I just have to ground them for a second and say, no, you're great in this spot, in this spot, in this spot. I haven't seen anybody that approaches this like that, or this, this way. That's unique to you. That's fabulous. Own it. Be proud of it. It's not having an ego. You can be humble and still be confident about what you're good at. So definitely work on confidence. That's crucial, not just for professional aspect, but also in your personal life. Working on your confidence is going to pay out all across the board. So logical folks, do confidence exercises, please and thanks.
Well, this has been so awesome. You guys are certainly welcome to continue to hang out here for as long as you like, talking with each other.